Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and start our meeting. I have asked Commissioner Hope if he would lead us in prayer, and Vice Mayor will lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would everyone stand and bow your heads if you wish? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence with us this evening. We thank you for the blessing of the coming of a new calendar year. May we receive your blessings to grant us the peace of understanding and wisdom to discern and act for what is best as your public servants, for all within our community. We ask you to remain close to our men and women in uniform throughout the world who protect and defend our freedoms at home. Provide solace and security for their families until their safe return home. Thank you, and keep also all of our first responders who provide for our safety, health, and well-being each and every day. We ask you to remain close to them as well. Please intercede and provide your grace of direction to our brothers and sisters in Israel and the Middle East that will only bring peace to all as only you can do. That you, Lord, will watch over our coming and going, both now and forever, as is written in Psalms chapter 121, verse 8. It is in your holy name we pray these things. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Hope and Vice Mayor. Okay, additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Could we please add agenda item 2 under new business to ratify agreement WG019 from FDEP from the 3:30 meeting?
Okay. That's it? That's all? Yes.
Madam Mayor, it's not in the order of a new business or an add-on, but I do want to make a motion before we begin the meeting regarding our agenda format. Just with the beginning of a new year and other meetings that I attend with public as well as municipal representation, that it is a point of fairness, equity, inclusion, and consideration, if we may, for all future meetings, have the invocation before calling the meeting to order. Just a simple step, but then we call the meeting to order and announce the Pledge of Allegiance to America and the United States, but the invocation be before we actually call the meeting to order.
Okay, I have no problem with that.
And I so make that motion, so.
Okay. You second without your microphone?
I second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Hope and a second by Vice Mayor. Any discussion?
Amen.
Commissioner discussion? Public discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. All right, so adoption of agenda with the change.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Hope and a second by Vice Mayor. Any discussion by the commission on the motion? None.
Amen.
Public discussion on the motion. All right, seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carries 5-0. All right. We are at guests, and we have Dallas Lee with a financial update.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday. For the record, I'm Dallas Lee. I'm a finance consultant hired by the City of Archer. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint with you guys tonight. As you know, I provided my financial update to you all last week. I'm going to present tonight kind of reverse of the financial update. We'll go through the financial update first, and then we'll go into the budget. If you have questions at any time, please stop me. It's supposed to be more discussion-based than me just droning on at you. So first of all, progress from the last report. In my last report, I had 5 items that were ongoing or needed to be addressed. The first was the bank reconciliations that were not being completed in a timely manner. Those are still ongoing. I have reconciled the general fund through February of 2024. The water fund has not been started on reconciliation yet. In your backup, I did provide a copy of last year's BTA with the changes I have made up through February to just give you an idea of some of the transactions that were not being recorded into your profit and loss, not being recorded into your system. So there's still 7 more months to go, so there's a long way to go, but I will continue to provide those to you at my monthly updates so you can see the changes between what was reported to you and what the actuals were. I am what I'm calling soft reconciling the ongoing year. So as you know, you have Justin who's doing your bookkeeping on a day-to-day basis. I am going through at the end of each month and giving a kind of cursory glance to make sure nothing big is being missed and that we're reporting those transactions. So those reports being presented to you are mostly accurate. The next item was that there was a lack of supporting documentation and approvals, invoices being paid without proper approvals or signatures or proof that they were approved. That is being corrected. We purchased an approval stamp, and the approvals are being signed by Deanna first before anything's paid, and then we're stamping them once they've been paid. I have an example. I'm so very proud. We have a copy of it's my invoice. Stamped, Deanna approved it prior to paying it, and then once it was paid, it was stamped and signed by Justin that it was paid. So we are, and then a copy of the check is attached to it. So we are beginning to keep records of all the payments that are going out and the invoices that went with them. We're still working on some of the organization and the tracking of the invoice support, but we're making really good progress. Budget compliance on approved transfers. We'll be discussing that obviously tonight in the budget section. We're still going to need guidance from the City Commission on how you want to record those transfers that were recorded last year, whether you want to record those as just transfers from your water fund or interfund loans. It was brought up in your audit report, which your auditors will be presenting to you at your next City Commission meeting. So it still needs to be addressed by the City Commission at some point. Grants management, I have a whole slide on, so we'll talk about that in just a second. FRS reporting has mostly been corrected. We are up to date. We're actually early on your FRS reporting, so we've reported to FRS all the way through December, so you're caught up to that. I did go back through a whole year looking at the commissioners' FRS as was requested of me. All of the commissioners, with the exception of the mayor, do owe $31.38 to the city, where the FRS was not properly deducted from your paychecks, but was paid to the state. So we take cash credit.
Yeah. Me. So can Deanna just take that out of our monthly, or do we need to just pay it?
We can deduct it from your paycheck if you'd like. We would request that you put it in writing so we have documentation of that. But
Okay.
it probably will not be. I believe you guys get paid next week. It probably won't be next week's paycheck, but maybe the one in February.
Then I'll just pay it, okay.
And was that just 1 month,
It was
or is
2
it
months.
2 months?
Mm.
Do you know what 2 months those were?
I do.
Just for us, if we write a check for,
Off the top of my head, I have it in the backup somewhere. Off the top of my head, I believe it was December of 23 and January of 23.
24. Or
24. Yeah.
24, okay.
I can send it to you. Actually, I believe it was in my report. It was.
Okay,
It was November of 23 and January of 24.
okay, thank you.
What page is that?
It's page 4 of the report. There's a table at the bottom.
Okay.
All right, so moving into grants management. Deanna and I had several meetings with Kimley Horn to discuss some of our grant management issues and some of the outstanding invoices the city owes to Kimley Horn. Out of that discussion, we came up with a payment plan for Kimley Horn and also discovered that we had several reimbursement requests that were eligible for submittal. So we requested that Kimley Horn submit those as soon as possible. They have submitted both of those grant reimbursements. So we have one into the state WGO 19 for $60,000 and one into the Water Management District for $19,000. Both of those have been submitted, so we are anticipating receiving those funds in the next several weeks. Once we receive those funds, we can start making payments on some of the other outstanding invoices you have with Kimley Horn. Earlier this evening, you ratified an amendment to the water quality grant, which allows for advance payment. So now we can submit those invoices to the state and receive advance payment, so the city's not putting out its cash first. So the state will pay that money to the city, then the city can pay those invoices. The mayor traveled with the city of Newberry to Tallahassee. It was myself, the mayor, city of Newberry's city manager, our grant funding team, our engineers, and Felicity from Kimley Horn. We met with DEP to discuss funding strategies with SRF and your grant programs for your various projects in Archer. We then also met with the Governor's Deputy Chief of Staff, and we advocated for both the City of Newberry and the City of Archer's grant programs with him. We also discussed with him the City of Archer's financial emergency and discussed requesting assistance from the state and a response from the state on the city's financial emergency. Both of those meetings were really positive. We got really good feedback from both of them. Some ideas of how to make our application stronger, how to put the cities in better places for those funding applications. One of the biggest ones from DEP is that the City of Archer should submit its permit application for the wastewater system as soon as possible so that it can be on the funding list. One of my recommendations when it comes to grant management is the city should consider hiring a grants manager, a grants funding team. You have Kimley Horn. However, Kimley Horn is an engineering firm. They kind of do grants on the side. I would recommend you hire a team that specifically works on funding and grants issues, can help you leverage different funds, find different funding methods and mechanisms to help you with your projects. As you all are aware, you have a lot of grant programs and you have a lot of complicated funding going on. And I don't think anybody has a full grasp of all the funding mechanisms and items you have out there. So I would definitely recommend you look into a funding team. Usually these funding teams find grants to pay for themselves, or they use grants you already have that'll pay for their services, so it's not an out-of-pocket expense to the city. So that's my recommendation on that. Moving into Kimley Horn, as I discussed, you currently owe $405,000 to Kimley Horn for various invoices. We did make a payment to Kimley Horn of $115,000 2 weeks ago-ish. Those are what those two reimbursements you saw earlier are for. So we have paid down a quarter, more than a quarter of what you owe to Kimley Horn so far. We're working with Kimley Horn to keep your services going while still making payments. But we did stress with Kimley Horn that it's on them to make sure they're filing reimbursements as soon as possible, that cash flow is an issue for the city. So as soon as they can get those reimbursements filed and we can get the cash back, we can make more payments. However, again, now that we've amended the agreement for advance payment, we can submit a lot of these invoices to the state and get advance payment and help pay down the balance. Restricted revenues. So while I was working on some items for the city, your wild spaces and infrastructure sales surtax balances began tingling. And once I looked into it, I discovered that you had been spending your wild space and infrastructure revenue inappropriately. I talked to your auditors. Your auditors have recalculated it, and they do agree that it has been misspent. Primarily, your wild spaces and infrastructure money has been spent on operations of the city. Those funds cannot be spent on operations. They have to be spent on capital. The only way you can spend it on operations is if you build something with wild spaces, you can then pay to operate that with wild spaces. Or if you build a road, you can use wild spaces to maintain that road. But it has to have initially been paid for with that surtax. So we contacted the county, we let the county know. The county has now alerted both the Infrastructure Sales Tax Oversight Board and the County Commission. They've requested that Deanna and I come speak to them in February about this issue. It was also discovered that your new local option gas tax has been misappropriated. The new local option gas tax, as you're aware, you get 2 tranches of gas tax. The first is your regular local option that can be spent on any transportation expenditure. Your new local option gas tax can only be spent on items that are identified in your capital improvement element of your comprehensive plan, typically for a capital expansion of your transportation network. We could not identify where those funds have been spent on those approved projects. So like I said, I worked with your auditors to recalculate those. As of fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, you should have had $516,000 in transportation tax, $1,900 in infrastructure, $115,000 in wild spaces. You currently have $2,900 between all 3 of those, which is going to drive your unassigned fund balance negative at the end of fiscal year 23. I recommend that you create a special revenue fund for each of these revenues. Unfortunately, QuickBooks does not allow you to do that. QuickBooks is not designed for governmental accounting. Enterprise business accounting doesn't use special revenue funds. What we have done is the city already had a separate bank account for the wild spaces money, so we've begun transferring those wild spaces and infrastructure sales tax dollars to a separate bank account to segregate them in the current fiscal year. However, the city is going to be required to pay back this money to itself for the infrastructure and wild spaces and for the transportation surtax. I have spoken to the county, Gina Peebles, Assistant County Manager and Chief of Staff, and asked that, the city's aware of it. The city told the county in advance that we came clean and we said that we messed up. She said that means a lot to the county, that we raised our hands and said that we had made a mistake, that they would have grace with the city in repaying these funds. Any questions before I move on?
That was a lot, but go ahead.
One of the items I was asked to look into was the credit card purchases. So I reviewed the last 12 months of credit card purchases. Out of 175 transactions, I found 52 that had non-compliance in one area or another on them. That doesn't mean there are 52 receipts, but there are 52-ish instances of non-compliance. The biggest issues were taxes being paid. There were 30 receipts that I found that had taxes paid on them. As you're aware, the city is tax exempt and should not be paying taxes. Very rarely does the city have to pay taxes. For example, if you travel out of state, we're no longer tax exempt. There are some certain resort taxes you're not exempt from, but overall, I found about $621 of taxes paid that the city should not have paid. In the city of Newberry, we would require the employee who made that purchase to reimburse the city for those taxes paid, or to go get the taxes credited back to the city. However, I did not find any evidence, not much evidence of credits or reimbursements for these tax payments. The next biggest issue I found was lack of documentation of public purpose. As you know, everything the city purchases must be for a public good, for a public reason. So I found 14 instances where either there may have been no public purpose or the public purpose wasn't documented. I will say I didn't find anything that just looked like outright fraud or misspending, but it is important to document why the city was spending money on these things. Some of the examples are food for staff, valet parking, event tickets, birthday cakes, flowers, etc. So like I mentioned, while they're good, they may be well-intentioned, they don't align with government spending guidelines. The next biggest issue of noncompliance was meals and travel. There were 8 receipts that violated the city's meal policy, mostly overcharges for food, and then there were missing documentation for several travel-related receipts. So I've got some examples here. As you can see on this one, we spent $30 on a buffet, which was over your travel reimbursement policy, and then we also paid taxes on that buffet dinner. On this travel receipt, we have numerous charges for taxes. We spent $57 a day on valet parking. We spent $85 on dinner, $43 on breakfast, $43 on breakfast, $43 on breakfast, $43 on breakfast. All of those are in violation of your policy on meals and valet parking, and then obviously taxes. This is another example. Again, we were paying taxes, we paid for valet parking, and the meals appear to be over the policy. On these two, we have a receipt from Publix for $27 that we labeled birthday. Not sure that birthday cakes serve a public purpose. And then we have a receipt for Bubba for some Bubba Nuggets we paid tax on, and again, we didn't document what the public purpose of this meal was for. This one, the city purchased flowers, paid taxes on the flowers, and then again, didn't document what the public purpose of purchasing flowers was for. I believe this was to send to an employee who was out sick. While that's a nice gesture on behalf of the city, it's not a public purpose, probably not the best use of public dollars. In the bottom left-hand side, you can see a copy of the transaction listing. I do want to point out it says Iris Bailey. That's for the ones above it. So this was not the mayor. There are several transactions here that receipts were not turned in for, and we have no documentation what those purchases were for. To the one on the right, again, we paid sales tax and we bought a $44 ribeye steak, which I do believe is above your travel policy. Next, moving into the transaction reporting of the of the credit card. When trying to reconcile the payments actually made on the credit card, the amount spent on the credit card, and what was recorded in QuickBooks, I ran into numerous issues. The chart on the screen here shows the ones in green are the only times that the payment recorded into QuickBooks actually agreed to the payment actually made to the credit card. So within a 12-month period, the amount recorded into your accounting system only matched the amount actually paid 4 times. It looks like towards the end, closer to the current time frame, we were making more accurate payments and recording those payments. But there was quite a period of time where I can't understand what payments were being made and what was being recorded. I will say there's very clearly some sort of logic to it. I just do not understand what the logic was. So we're working on getting that corrected as well. So some of my recommendations when it comes to your credit cards is that you need to improve your payment tracking. We need detailed tracking within QuickBooks, eventually Edmunds. We need to use a standardized process to reconcile these. We need to pay your credit card bill in a timely manner. You did receive at least 2 months of late charges on your credit card bill. You need a detailed policy that says what receipts are needed. For example, our policy in Newberry says you always have to provide an itemized receipt. You always have to write on it what it was for, and it has to be given to us within 5 days of the purchase being made. I would also say you do have a travel policy, but it does not appear that your travel policy was enforced or used. So I would recommend that you enforce and use your travel policy. You may want to look at it. The limits seem a little low on some of the meal purchases, but whatever you set those limits at, they should be enforced. As I mentioned in Newberry, if we have someone who overspends on their travel, we do require them to pay the city back, or we deduct it from their mileage reimbursement. Some way the city's not going to pay for that overage. There should be a monthly review and checking process of credit card transactions, cross-checking, making sure they agree to the policies. Perhaps 2 people is always better if you can. As I mentioned at one of the previous meetings, as Commissioner White and I had discussed, would recommend that you don't use a credit card system anymore, and you may want to transition to a purchasing card system. The state of Florida has one that they offer to all governments. The purchasing card system gives you more control over what can and cannot be purchased on the credit card. It gives you tracking options for receipt uploads. It prints the tax exempt ID right on the card, so you're more likely to get your tax exemption. You can tie down what the card can be used for, so you can say you can never use this card on convenience stores or whatever you want to say. You can also create cards that can only be temporarily used. So if a commissioner or somebody's traveling, you can give them a card and give them a temporary credit limit that automatically expires. It just gives you more accountability, more usability in your cards. You can also, in Newberry, when hurricanes come, we raise all of our credit card limits temporarily to allow people to have flexibility in storm events. You can do those sorts of things. I would recommend that you conduct an annual training on credit cards and procurement policies with all your staff. It is all staff's responsibility to make sure that they are following the rules and acting as fiduciaries of the citizens' money. So I didn't recommend that you have some sort of a policy that you do a training once a year, both on credit cards for anybody who has a credit card, but also general procurement, how the city procures, that you don't pay taxes, all those good things. And then, as I've mentioned several times, you should revise and update all your policies. When you do that, get all of your card holders to sign that they have received the new policy, that they understand, they agree to the new policy, they understand that not following the policy is a disciplinary issue, and that the city will deduct over expenditures and improper expenditures from their paychecks. Moving on. So there's and this may not be cool to anybody else except for accounting nerds, but there's a really cool report that comes out every year. It's called the ACFE Report to the Nations. It's a report on occupational fraud and how occupational fraud is perpetrated, who perpetrates it, the kinds of fraud that happens, the things you can do to prevent fraud. It's got all kinds of really great information. I sent you all a link to it to read in your spare time. The biggest thing I would take out of it right now for the city of Archer is that the biggest way that fraud is detected in any organization is through tips from employees, vendors, or outside sources. By and large, you can see 43% of all fraud is discovered through a tip from someone. The next biggest is internal audit, followed by management review. I will remind you that the purpose of your audit is not to detect fraud. A lot of people think that the audit's there to stop fraud or detect fraud. The audit exists to attest to the validity of your financial statements, not to detect fraud. So I would highly recommend that you implement a hotline, a fraud hotline. There's one out there called Fraud HL. We use it in Newberry. Again, sorry, talk about Newberry all the time. But Fraud HL is an anonymous fraud reporting system. It costs $250 a year for a nonprofit. It allows anybody, resident, public, citizen, which are the same three things, employees, commissioners, whoever, to anonymously report fraud or any sort of issue, really, HR issues, whatever they want to report anonymously. They can fax it, they can email it, they can call, they can do whatever. That report is then sent to 3 different people that the city determines. So in Newberry, it's myself, the city manager, and the city attorney's office. Perhaps in Archer, it would be the city manager, the mayor, and the city attorney's office, or whoever you decide. They give you posters. So we post posters everywhere. It's in the bottom of all of our finance department emails. It goes out with all of our paychecks. We do annual training on it. We make employees sign that they received and understand that there's a fraud hotline. So I would recommend that you guys implement this fraud hotline just to give people a place to report if they don't feel comfortable reporting directly to their supervisor or the city manager or whoever. Okay, so the next steps. The next steps that I'll be working on is to finalize the grant amendment, which is done, so already making progress. And then to work with Kimley Horn to file those grant reimbursements. We have to issue your 1099s and your W-2s in January, so I've already begun working with Deanna and Justin on how we're going to do that. I'm continuing to work on reconciling your bank accounts, continuing to organize your accounting records and implement policies. We're working on addressing the ERP system issues and moving from QuickBooks to Edmunds. The county did reach out to me and ask what they might be possibly able to do to help the city of Archer. I told them primarily the city of Archer needs money and we would like them to give us money. But secondarily, the county has lots of good project managers and IT staff. So if they could help, if they could send somebody over to help us transition to the ERP or to Edmunds and get using Edmunds and kind of restart the implementation process. The county seemed fairly amenable to both. They are having a meeting next week to discuss further, so I hope we get some feedback from them in a week or two. I'm going to present your revised budget in about a minute. Working with Powell and Jones to start working on the fiscal year 24 audit. As I mentioned, we're collaborating with the county on financial assistance, and then based off the conversation tonight, we'll implement any budget changes or other items as discussed by the commission. So that completes my financial report. Any questions or comments before we move into the budget?
I do. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back to the, purchasing with government funds, for government.
Public purpose.
Okay. So what if you have a commissioner's husband dies, I'm just using me as an example, and the city can't send flowers?
I would recommend against it.
Okay. So we know
Because
that.
you have to think about what does that serve for the greater good of the city of Archer. In Newberry, we would collect money amongst ourselves and purchase flowers, but
Okay,
it would not come out of city tax dollars.
thank you.
Is there a credit card that when a city employee purchased something, that it automatically know whomever they're purchasing, that it doesn't pay tax?
That's what he was talking about, the P card.
So there's not one that automatically does that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Our purchasing card has printed directly on it. Where is my purchasing card?
So the credit card from
Our
Archer don't
purchasing
say.
card has printed directly on it our tax exempt ID.
Okay,
Because
and
it's on the vendor to exempt the taxes for you.
Mhm.
A lot of times people say, oh, I don't have the tax exempt certificate, I don't have the number. So if it's printed on the card, you're more likely to get it. But really, it's the employee's responsibility or whoever's responsibility to make sure you're not paying taxes.
so none of the credit cards that Archer own have like the city of Archer that
I have not seen your credit card, so I don't know.
just
It
have,
doesn't, it's a regular card, it
it just
doesn't
have
have the,
it just have a
tax.
person's name on it.
No,
don't have
it
the
has
city.
both, has Deanna Alltop, City of Archer, but it doesn't have her tax exempt, so I always give people the little slip in the credit card to go with them.
But, Mayor, I distinctly remember this coming up, and I think it was in a meeting, and I asked the accountant, should we be paying taxes? And I'm not sure if it was in a meeting, Deanna, but I know you may remember. She said, I used to think so, but now I've just found out we don't, if we pay taxes, we get reimbursed. If the employees were told that, I was told that, if the employees were told that, then, but I know she said that, and could've been
I'm not
maybe.
sure how you get reimbursed.
I'm not sure either.
I'm just telling you what I was.
I believe it.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Lee, was there any discussion with the county and their availability of giving reference for the grant funding management team? Do they have one, or would they provide a reference, or does Newberry have one that they use that could be presented
The
to them?
county, I believe, I don't want to speak for the county. I know the county has a number of internal grant managers on the staff. I'm not sure if they use any external. The city of Newberry, we do have one full-time grant manager on staff, but we also use a firm called Woodard and Curran, who has a funding management team that we contract with. Mayor Bailey met their Southeast director who came with us to Tallahassee, who's actually offered to volunteer 8 hours of her time to the city of Archer to help. My code of ethics says I can't recommend anybody, but That's who we use.
But you could provide a reference,
My code of ethics says I can't provide a reference.
so you can't provide the information at all.
I can provide you the information.
Would you give that to Deanna Alltop, Madam Mayor, please, for our review? Thank you, in consideration. Thank you.
Absolutely.
One more thing before he goes on to the budget, and it's not for you, it's for the attorney. With all of this,
Which attorney?
well, they're all, he should get the best advice.
I'm being reviewed today.
With all of this that's going on and everything else we know that's coming from the audit, there's nothing we can do.
There's always something you can do. The question becomes, is it a good idea to do it? Will it cost more money than it will provide in reimbursement?
Probably, but
Which becomes the question. So we are exploring a lot of different options. We will have additional updates for you all a little bit later on, sort of where we are with a couple of different things in that front. But there's always something you can do. The question is, does it make financial sense? Is it a good use of public funds to do that?
and I understand, I do understand. I just feel like somebody other than us should be held responsible. I mean, we're being held responsible, somebody else should.
Ultimately, you all, as a commission, will make that decision.
Sorry. Sorry, Tangi.
I'm done. Questions, comments? You know,
All right, we're moving into budget. I always like to start any of our budget conversations with this quote, and it may just because I'm a budget nerd, but I think it really speaks to the purpose and importance of a city budget, and that is the truth of a city's aspirations isn't found in its vision, it's found in its budget. It's a nice way of saying put your money where your mouth is, essentially. So moving on, as you know, you have both governmental funds and enterprise funds. As a reminder, your governmental funds are those funds that are primarily supported with tax dollars. Your enterprise funds are those that are primarily supported with charges for services and operate more like businesses. So, as an overview, on your general fund revenues, you have about a third of your revenue comes from your ad valorem. A little more than a third comes from all your other tax sources. And then your next largest piece of the pie there is state revenues. This is pretty common for cities, really of all sizes, that about a third comes from ad valorem, and then you're heavily relying on taxes and state revenues, especially in smaller cities. You don't have a lot of other revenue options. So I would say your revenue portions are fairly in line with what I see. In your general fund expenditures, your largest expenditure is your streets budget. Oh, and I should clarify, this is your currently adopted budget, not the budget proposal that I have sent you. So this is your currently adopted budget. So your largest expenditure is in your streets department, followed by your finance and admin and executive areas. Then you have a fairly large amount in parks and rec. Of course, your budget is small, so in your executive department, you don't have a lot except for one person's salary, but it being a small budget, it does take up a larger portion than you might see in some other places. So in discussing ad valorem taxes, I always like to remind residents, when you pay that tax bill to the tax collector, not all of it is coming to the city of Archer. In fact, only about 22 cents of every dollar that you're paying in your taxes comes to the city of Archer. A majority of it goes to the school board and the county. The county obviously then has to redistribute it to a number of governments that they support. You guys are a member of the Alachua County's MSTU for law enforcement services, so you pay about 14 cents of every dollar to the MSTU. And then obviously you have the library district and the children's trust and the library district. And then, like I said, Archer gets about 22 cents of every dollar of taxes, property taxes that are paid to the tax collector. This is a graph that shows you over the last 10 years your millage rate compared to the ad valorem taxes that you were projected to collect. You've had a fairly good increase over the last 10 years, almost almost double. You went from 180,000 to 310,000 in the last 10 years. Only a small millage rate increase of a quarter of a mil back in 2019. But you've had some steady growth in your ad valorem or property tax revenue, so that's a positive sign. So in discussing your millage, as I mentioned, your millage is 5.5479. The city of Archer also participates in the county's MSTU of 3.5678. So your actual total millage rate for the city that your residents pay for city services is 9.1157. As a reminder, the maximum amount that the city can charge, which includes MSTUs, is 10 mils. So the maximum amount the city could increase its millage is 0.8843. That would take you to the 10 mils. Obviously, that depends on whatever the county does with its MSTU next year. If you did go the full 0.88 mils increase, that would generate you about $49,000 in additional revenue based off of your current taxable values in fiscal year 25. Your fiscal year 25 value was just under $56 million. And then as you can see on the graph, we've got all the cities in the unincorporated county and the county listed here. So Archer is at the higher end of the scale. If you were to increase to the 10 mils, you would be equal with Hawthorne. But as I mentioned, I don't know what I was mentioning. That's where you are. I do have some revenue diversification options for you. It doesn't all have to be property taxes. One of the first things I would recommend that I think is really easy for you to do is to adopt a vacant property registry. A vacant property registry is a registry that exists to register your vacant properties, obviously. What this does is, when a bank forecloses on somebody or a house goes into foreclosure, it requires that the bank or whoever owns that new vacant property register that property and the ownership with the city. This is beneficial for two reasons. One, they have to pay you a fee to do that. Yay, money. Two, it lets you know who owns that property, which assists you in code enforcement issues. Your city attorney is shaking her head aggressively. In the city to the north of you, we charge $400. We have a third-party company who does all of the work for us. Every time a property registers, they collect $100 and they send us a check for $300. And we get a nice database of who owns all the vacant property. Now, obviously, this revenue vastly changes from year to year. Newberry, in years where the economy was worse, has seen up to $25,000 in revenue. This year, we're only about 4 or 5. But it is easy, free money. You do have to adopt an ordinance. Your city attorney's office could probably steal one that they drafted for a city to the north of you to adopt. And then there are lots of organizations out there who will implement it and enforce it for you and send you a check every month. You can also do vacant properties, not just foreclosed properties, and capture more. It is an annual fee. However, the first year you typically will see a much higher revenue spike and then subsequently lower amounts. But I would recommend that the city commission investigate that, adopt that ordinance, hire that company. The second revenue option you have is special assessments. The one caveat with special assessments is you do have to do a study, so you have to spend money to find the rational nexus. But the city could impose a special assessment to generate additional revenue. One thing about special assessments is they do have to be used to benefit property, to have some sort of a benefit to a piece of property. So you can't just have a special assessment just to have one. So there's a number of options on the screen. Fire protection, which you already have through the county. County manages your fire assessment for you. But you can do special assessments on street improvements, water improvements, wastewater improvements, stormwater, downtown redevelopment, parks and recreation, all sorts of things. In the city to the north, we have a fire assessment. We're currently in a study to develop a stormwater assessment in our downtown area, which would pay for stormwater collection systems and stormwater management. And we're also looking at a street maintenance assessment and a capital streets assessment to pay for building of new roads and maintaining of existing roads. And these are just some of the options. There are other options that exist out there. You cannot do a special assessment for police. You can't do a special assessment for, planning, but these are options that exist for you. Okay, so moving into some of the budget recommendations in the general fund. The first thing I saw in your budget for the general fund is that wild spaces and infrastructure sales tax was in your general fund revenue being used to fund operations. As we discussed earlier, you cannot use that money for operations, so I have removed that from your general fund budget and placed it into a special revenue fund so that those monies can be tracked separately and ensure that we only spend them on the expenses that are allowable under the law. I reduced travel across all departments. Well, let me first clarify. These are my proposals. Everything has to be approved by the commission. Obviously, if you want to cut more, cut less. I did discuss these with Deanna to make sure that the city staff could live with these recommendations. And obviously, we're here to take your feedback. Anything we talk about tonight will have to come back to you for a vote to actually amend the budget. So I propose that we reduce travel across all budgets, eliminating funding for non-essential government activities. There was a line item in your budget for city events. I believe that pays for a variety of city events. I think the fireworks at the 4th of July. I did remove that from your budget. Understand that might be a point of discussion, but I reduced the city manager's budget or salary to 6 months. I reduced public works salaries. You currently have an unfilled position, so I reduced the vacant position out of the budget. I also proposed reducing that from a full-time position to a part-time position. I removed the community center upgrades. I removed tree cutting services by 50%, reduced maintenance budgets by 50%. I adjusted salaries in the finance and administration to more closely reflect what's actually happening. I also moved Scott White's salary. He was being paid out of Public Works. I moved him into Parks and Recreation. I think that's a more appropriate allocation of his salary. And then you have a full detailed listing of all the cuts in your backup, along with some notes. Overall, those proposed cuts end you with a surplus in your general fund of $76,000. There are, as I mentioned earlier, we don't know what your 2024 budget looked like. So as things change, we're going to need to continually monitor and change your 2025 budget. But this does give you a nice starting point of $76,000 in surplus that can be used to meet some of your outstanding obligations. Okay. This is just a graphic that shows your originally adopted budget and the cuts with the new budget. So as you can see, most areas were reduced fairly significantly, with the exception of the legal department. You're welcome, Scott. Finance and admin reduced a little bit, but that's mostly because of readjustments. So there were still cuts in that area. Happy to discuss any of them because that concludes my general fund section. So,
Mayor,
Yes.
Dallas, I talked to Deanna about this afternoon. On the recreation, yeah, you have $500 for travel.
Which page are you?
That's,
Which one is that?
not-
It's not numbered,
No,
never mind.
but it's under Parks and Recreation. And you have $500 for travel. Scott doesn't get travel unless he goes to one meeting a year, and it's maybe $30.
okay.
And,
Yeah, I just took your currently adopted budget has $1,000 for travel,
I know,
so I just cut it in half. But I will happily cut that to
yeah.
$30.
Well, yeah, 30, because he doesn't, I go pick up uniforms and I don't get reimbursed.
Alrighty.
The other one was the concessions. You have $100. That can be reduced to zero because it's basically a contract, and, well, we have a lady that does it. She volunteers to do it. We don't have to buy her.
So the concessions revenue should also be reduced to zero?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Supplies and revenue, because, yeah, she does it just so we have a concession. I think that was it that I saw.
Question, Madam Mayor, question, the lady that does the concessions, she supplies her own stuff and does her own selling, and she just receives the revenues?
She does it just, she supplies everything and she gets the revenue out of it. She's just helping us,
Okay,
because we don't have any parents that want to, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up your time. We don't have any parents that will volunteer to do it. She volunteered to do it, and, she volunteered to do it, and so that's how we work it out. And that gives our people, the people that come to the games, concession.
okay. I was just asking, because normally folks have to pay pay bill or something to do that. That's what I was asking.
Well, we even tried, we did it, we tried everything to get somebody to come in to do it, and, nobody, we reached out to churches, nobody wanted to do it, so, she did, and that's how we took care of it. It helped us. I mean, it's not helping her that much, because she made, it's not helping her that much, because she might make $100 on a good night.
Okay.
I know that's not much, but it's.
Anything else?
Did you see anything? It's the blue pages.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, because I don't remember, Madam Mayor, I don't remember, maybe I should look back at some things. But on the Laura Hill Cemetery, and we're looking at the proposed 15,000. I can't remember how much do they charge for lots out there? Plots, for the plots, I'm sorry.
I thought it was, no, 1,000.
1,000, okay.
Do you recollect, Ms. Althoff, how many we sold last fiscal year?
Yeah, that,
We actually have sold quite a few years in a row. I can't remember how many this year, but I could probably figure that out if it's not on here. But yeah, we had several people buy, like I said, 8 to 10 or more at a time.
It's increasing from years past.
It has
correct?
been, yes,
Okay.
sir, yes.
not that we want anybody dying.
Dying to get in.
But I know when I looked at that, and then I looked at the expense for the Laura Hill, it almost breaks even.
Which is pretty good and uncommon. It's not common that cemeteries break even.
Yeah.
I saw where you had a question, by sale of surplus material and scrap, is this going to happen?
Yes. I spoke to Deanna about that, and my understanding is that they're doing some repairs to the equipment, and then we're gonna take it, we have to bring it for the commission to declare a surplus, and then we're gonna bid it out.
Is that only for the scraps, or that's for also like the surplus of lots that we own? I think Chris Kirsten was looking into that for us.
That is not inclusive of your surplus property as in real property.
Okay,
I can give you a sort of general 10,000 foot view of where we are with that, which is that we've sent the list of properties to Kimley Horn for them to indicate to us which they have already tagged for your project so that we don't sell one of those. We have not heard back from Kimley Horn on that yet. So I'm hopeful that with our payment plan, we will be rocking and rolling on our way to additional responses from Kimley Horn.
How long ago was that sent?
I would have to look. It was after the last meeting.
Okay. That's fine, within the last 2 weeks. I think that's it.
All right. So I just have some questions up here for commission direction. I think the first two have been answered. Obviously, we will still have to bring this back, so there's one more crack at the apple. And of course, the commission can amend its budget anytime it wants, any meeting, so it's not your final chance to do it. Is the commission interested in looking into either vacant property registry or an assessment?
Yes.
Yes.
I like both.
Which assessment is the commission interested in looking at?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we proceed with the assessments in street improvements and parks and recreation. My motion also include adopting the vacant property registry and adopting the ordinance that's required with that.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that one.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Hope and a second by Vice Mayor. Additional discussion? Commissioners?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
a special assessment goes to the citizens to pay?
It goes to all property owners.
Yeah. And we're looking at, I think it's a good idea. I just don't know if it's a good idea this year because we're fixing to go up on their water and their garbage. We got to.
Madam Mayor, one point of clarification on assessments is it is too late to adopt one for this year. So it would not go in, you could not put it into effect until November of 2026.
I just hate to put too much on our citizens and we're fixing to go up on them on a lot of things.
And when you were talking about assessments, you said special assessments. And what were those examples again? Do you remember? You don't remember?
Fire protection, which you already have, street improvements, water wastewater extensions, stormwater improvements, downtown redevelopment, parks and recreation.
That's why my motion considered this. Because that's where we spend a lot of money, and we also try to do the most with a little bit of money with the parks and recreation.
And just a reminder to the commission that, like Dallas said earlier, each of these requires a study. So you should be familiar with that from fire assessment. You have to go out, spend not an insignificant amount of money on the study. So the first thing we would get for you is a quote on what that would be. So that would be step one.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Public discussion on the motion?
Bill Longowski, citizen, this yours? In regards to the special assessment piece, the citizens will not be happy until you demonstrate a history of good governance and financial management, number one. Number two, they will also not be happy unless you demonstrate the absolute need and you have exhausted all other ways of funding those projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Costello, citizen. There is a lot of road work that has been done that we contracted out, that in the past our Public Works has done. There is no need besides paving, and even Public Works has done some paving in the past, that we have to contract this out. You know, we need to get qualified people in Public Works. We used to do it in the past. We used to repair all our roads. When there was potholes, a lot of potholes in the road, they used to clean all the potholes out, go to Northeast Gainesville and get the stuff to, yep, all the holes. Okay, now we have a lot of deferred maintenance. Instead of plugging one that's this big, they wait till it's this big, okay? The roads need to be graded. We've always used our box grader to grade the roads for, that I know of, 25 plus years, okay? None of that's being done. The stuff that they did on 141st Lane, they just put the black stuff on there. Our Public Works could have done that. They did that on 168th Street. I mean, we went and we got the material, we spread it out, we rented a machine to do the packing. I mean, it's ridiculous how much work that we are contracting out that Public Works should be able to do. All right, so I just hope that before you think of taxing the citizens an assessment, that you are absolutely doing all you can do, whether that means getting qualified people in Public Works, but do whatever you gotta do and be working on it now. But we either got to make sure Public Works is qualified or for them to get qualified, because it was done in the past and we can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments?
Rhonda Robertson, citizen. I oppose any assessment or rate increases until I see that the money I'm already giving out of my Social Security is being handled properly. I live on a fixed income, like so many other people do in Archer. Until I see everyone tightening their belt, then I'm gonna refuse to tighten mine.
Thank you.
Bob Kosicki, citizen. Obviously, it's easy to say, hey, let's look at assessments. Let's look at other ways of income and everything. As a homeowner in this town and in this county, we always see yearly tax increases. We see insurance on our homes that obviously the city can't do anything about. So when we start looking at all the things we have to already cover, and we talk about other assessments to our properties or whatever, it's going to make it harder for anybody in this town to pay more. Yes, there's certain things we have to increase. You know, obviously the city's losing money on water. I can understand certain things that we're going to have to cover because we can't continue losing money on things. But the other things that you look at raising are now other things that we're going to have to pay besides those things. And that's going to be it for everybody in the city.
Thank you. Is that all? All right. Were you done? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Did commissioners have any final words before we vote?
Madam Mayor, I do have a question. I know the motion was on the floor, but was the motion, take my mind back, is it for both the vacant property registry and the special assessments, or did you separate?
No, it was for both to proceed forward with the assessment consideration that the attorney has already said it would be 2026 before that would even be something brought forward in fiscal year 2026, correct?
Yeah, if I can clarify, the way I heard the motion was to move forward with looking into these things.
Those two things. And the
Not
registry,
implementing them, yeah.
the registry, it costs nothing to proceed to implement that and get that in place, to provide the city with the available information to know what those properties are, where they are, and to also receive free money, as Mr. Lee said, so.
And that's, I understood the motion to be for the, the assessment. I didn't hear the registry.
No, it was for those two items,
said
the
both.
things to consider. I was trying to make one motion to proceed forward with
Okay.
of course, the registry being the first, because it's free money. It costs nobody anything and provides additional
And
information.
I have no problem with it. I do have a
And I
problem with
would
the
like to
assessment.
proceed forward in the motion with the assessment consideration moving forward with where our city stands, and based on the comparison of our city with millage rates to other cities within the county. That's the validity behind considering to move forward with that. because we have a wastewater system, we have State Road 24 about to be 4-lane. We have a current heavy truck traffic in our inner city streets right now that's destroying our streets, of which as your public servant, I don't know what direction to go in with that, but it is tearing up our inner city streets. I know 170th Street and our downtown Main Street is being deteriorated so quickly. I've never seen it in 35 years like it is now. That's just a problem, but I'm saying I see streets improvement going beyond just what Public Works staff can do based on the traffic that I see. And I, again, don't know if we can have ordinances or seek county authority to try to assist with that. That's just another project to move forward with. That's why I'm emphasizing the consideration of streets assessment moving into 2026.
Okay, so,
That's the logic behind it.
and he did say consideration for assessment, and then Kirsten told us that they're gonna see how much it will cost us first before that even becomes a thing.
Right, and then those come back to you.
All right, so let's go to a vote.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Kevin. If I'm going to the phone, I guess I was so that Commissioner White, I might have been a little dozed up for something, but I thought it was just on the special assessments, the motion. So I guess at this point, we can't divide the two.
Well, we could if he wanted
If
to.
the motion dies,
amend
you
it. No, you had a second, but the main point is that for the assessments, there is pre-work that has to be done for us to decide if that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, so that is going to give her, the feet to be able to go ahead and find that information and bring it back to us.
Madam Mayor,
Okay, yes.
we can also, if it votes down, somebody could make a motion only on the, registry.
Correct.
That is correct. Just to be clear, you all have currently implemented a policy that indicates that any contracts come before you before they're signed. I imagine the vacant property registry would have some kind of contract, so even that will need to come before you again. So just keep that in mind, is that nothing in this motion can we just have Deanna sign or the mayor sign and then it's implemented. It has to come back before you.
We're ready now?
Nope.
You have another question? Go ahead.
So before I vote, I'm just trying to get clarification. If this get voted down, again, I'm thinking, I want to understand this clearly. We could go back to voting on the vacant property, okay.
All right, we ready now? All right. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 3-2. Thank you.
While we're doing that, can we look at the fraud hotline also?
Yes, you want to make a
Do we need
motion?
to go to Deanna with that, or you?
You'll just need a motion, Deanna, and I will look into it.
I want to make a motion to, look into the fraud hotline, the city of Archer.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that, and if I could just make sure we know exactly what that cost is to the city per year. I understand Mr. Lee said it's approximately $250, but
It is exactly $250.
just in your presentation, Ms. Althoff, at the next meeting, could you just give us the exact amount of what we're expensing in that motion?
All right. Additional discussion? Commissioners? No? Public discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carries 5-0.
Now, I just have one more thing. On the water, you made, I think it was in the budget, a statement about the water fund the general fund paying back the water fund. So do I need to make a motion to that effect? Because it does need to be a loan. It doesn't need to be what you said.
I would recommend you wait until you have your audit presentation from your auditors at the
That's
next meeting,
scary.
because they discuss it in depth in your audit.
Okay. Okay, so that's all you need, that's all you need from us?
For now.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, so moving into your enterprise funds, starting with your water system. As you can see on this slide in front of you, your water system historically has been operating at a loss, with losses ranging from 7% of your operating to 102% operating losses. I couldn't really find a rhyme or reason for why there's such a fluctuation. As you can see, your revenue is fairly consistent. I would expect to see a little bit of increase year over year with rate increases and new connections. But your expenditures are kind of all over the place, from a low of $250,000 one year to a high of $530 just 2 or 3 years later. Some of this might be grant related, but if it was, I would anticipate seeing grant related revenues to offset it. So there is something happening in your water fund. I am not sure what it is. I'm continuing to look at it. So just keep that in mind as we go through the next couple slides. The state of Florida, the average water bill for 8,000 gallons of usage in a month, which is the average usage across the state, is $46.11. That's based off of an engineering study that comes out every other year. So this is the 2002 study. The 2024 study isn't available yet, but this number is adjusted for inflation. So keep that in mind, $46 average across the state of Florida. In Archer, your average water bill for 8,000 gallons is $65. So when I first began looking into your water budget, my first thought is, well, we need to raise rates. Your rates are insufficient. However, your rates are not a problem. Your rates and your revenue are high. Your rates are higher than all of your peers. As you can see on the graph here, everybody else in our area is lower than you. So I cannot in good conscience recommend that you raise your rates. What this says to me is you have a spending problem in the water system. I'm not entirely sure what that spending problem is. One of the things your auditor is going to report to you, as you've seen in your audit report, is you do have very high system losses. You are losing about a quarter of every gallon that you pump into your system is being lost. You're not selling it. You have inaccurate meters. I have not verified this for myself, but I have been told that your meter reading is inaccurate. I believe your auditor also spoke to your meter reading being inaccurate. As you know, the meters are your cash register. You want those meters to be accurate, and you want them to be billing correctly, because every time that meter doesn't spin, you are losing money. And your water system is a business, and you need to make sure you're making money. One note is on this is I could not get Trenton and Micanopy's most current rates, so their rates are probably a little bit higher. But even still, you are not in range of your peer cities. So as I mentioned,
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
absolutely.
Madam Mayor?
Microphone.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
Microphone.
Oh, so sorry. So when you said about our rates with the meter, with the readings, so is that indicating there's something wrong with the meter, or indicating someone's not reading them right? What's the indication?
I can't speak to where the problem is. I just know there is a problem.
I think that there was some problems with meter. I'm not sure how many meters it was, but I know that it was at one time.
Yeah, I know a while back it was, but I thought that was corrected. When they got new ones.
Don't forget the broken valves.
I was gonna.
You also have broken valves.
Yeah, Tangie's correct. Not all the meters are incorrect, just so that message isn't out there. Some of the meters do malfunction, yes, and then some have, like Tandy was just saying, have leaking valves that we need to fix or haven't got to for whatever reason. And then also the water could be off possibly because the way we do adjustments at Edmonds, we weren't doing them correctly, but now we know how. So I think that might have been an issue too. Like it shows somebody used 50, 100,000 gallons or plus. So we know that's not right. So I think it's a mixture of things in my opinion.
She agrees.
Yeah, no matter what the cause is, it's clearly affecting your rates. You know, your water rate should be a math problem. It costs this much to run the water system. We sell these many gallons of water. Cost divided by gallons equal rates. And so you guys have extremely high rate. I don't want to say extremely. You have above average rates, and you're losing money. So something is happening. Another example, as I mentioned, I think there's some sort of a spending issue or perhaps allocation issues. In the City of Archer's water department for 2025, you budgeted $232,000 in salaries. The City of Newberry, who has approximately 8 times as many customers as you do, we budgeted $240,000 in salaries. So to me, that either means you're overstaffed, you're overpaying staff, you're misallocating staff, something is not correct there. The City of Newberry and the City of Archer should not be paying the same amount for water personnel. I will say in Newberry, we do have other departments that supplement, like we have a separate customer service department whose salaries aren't included in the water department. We have a separate utility administration department who's not included, but it still should not be that close. For example, Hawthorne, they budgeted $116,000 in their water department for the current year. One thing that I've noted and talked to Tangi about is you guys don't currently do credit checks or collection write-offs. So you write off your bills, but you don't send them to a collections agency to collect that bad debt for the city. We'd recommend that you hire a collections agency. If you amend your ordinances, I'm giving a lot of work to Kirsten, but you can amend your ordinances to pass that collection fee on to the bad debtor. So that city to the north of us, when we have a bad debt, we charge them 30% for write-off, and then we send it to the collections agency. The collections agency collects it. They take 30%, so we've already made up for that money, and then they send us the revenue. But all bad debt is reported to collections agency monthly. As I previously mentioned, your water losses are high. You have about a 24% water loss, which is high. Typically, you want to see in the 10 to 15% range of water losses. Now, having an older system, you'll have higher losses, but that's still 10 or 15% you're losing in revenue just from water losses. Because you are treating that water, you're spending money getting that water out of the ground, and then you're just putting it back into the ground. I do recommend, there is a company out there called Water Company of America, WCA. They specialize in municipal water system revenue recovery audits. What they do is they come in and they look at your billing, they look at your meters, they look at your meter reading. Their whole goal is to capture you missing revenue. So they will come in, they will find where you are losing revenue. Maybe it's water leaks, maybe it's meters, whatever it is, and they will present it to you and say, here's how much money you're losing, and then you pay them a portion of what they find. So I think it's for 5 years, you pay them half of what they find. So if they come in and they find $50,000 of lost revenue, you would get 25, and you'd pay them 25 for 5 years. If they find nothing, they get paid nothing. But I would recommend that you look into hiring them or a company like them. Again, I can't recommend anybody, but the city to the north, did use them. We had a positive experience. Any questions on that? Moving into your solid waste fund, I didn't update the slide, so we're going to skip this one. Your solid waste rates are pretty middle of the pack. I was asked to verify that you are charging enough to cover your solid waste rates, your solid waste charges from Waste Pro. You're making about $5 a month per customer on solid waste. One recommendation I do have is I believe Tangi is currently paid partially out of general fund and partially out of the water fund. I would move a portion of her salary to the solid waste fund because obviously she is billing and collecting bills for both water and wastewater. So that'll help reduce your wastewater charges, and also use some of that solid waste revenue. And that is all I have.
Okay. I do know that Dana from Waste Pro had contacted me about the increase. And I remember we talked about it. I don't remember if we did the approval to add that increase.
If I remember correctly, it's in the contract where it can be raised every year. But I'd have to either Kirsten or myself look it up. I'm pretty sure it's in there.
I thought, and I'm just jumping in here on that. Dana told me that they were gonna have to go up, so.
Right.
But I also thought that when, Uriah was here, that we motioned to have a cost of living increase on our water and solid waste annually. Then I was told you can't do that. That has to be done annually by ordinance.
You can adopt
Are you the one that told me that? Okay.
You can adopt an ordinance that says, in 2024, our rates are this, and in 2025, our rates are this, and 27 and 20. You cannot adopt an ordinance that says every year we go up by 3%, or every
Okay.
year we go up by the CPI. You have to say, here are the rates for the next several years.
Okay, so see, that's where I was getting off, it's because I thought we were going up and we weren't.
Right. All right.
The water?
Commissioner White, are you making a motion for us to adopt an ordinance to go up by the cost of living that will give the rates for the next 3 or 4 years
Well, if we have to do it,
by ordinance?
I know, are we gonna have to go up more than the cost of living is my concern. I'm hearing 12%.
I mean, if the commission desires to just close this gap that you have in 2025, it's 17%.
Oh, jeez.
Your currently adopted budget has you losing $54,000 in the water fund.
I am gonna make a motion for something, but it's not gonna be for that just yet. I'm gonna make a motion for the WCA, first of all,
Okay.
because I think that'll tell us a lot of where we're losing. And I'm not sure it's all billing.
All right.
I'm
So
willing to go up some, but I just can't put 17% on our citizens. That's me.
all right.
Madam Mayor, my recommendation, for what it's worth, is not to adjust your rates until you figure out what is causing your expense budget to be so high. Your rates are already the highest in the area. Something is happening on the expense side. I think WCA can help you identify that. As I get more time to dig into the water budget, I hope to find some of the issues there as well. But
Okay. So I was about to say that we had a motion by Commissioner White. No, that was, she made it. All right. No second?
The higher
The WCA?
yeah.
To raise it?
No,
To
to hire the WCA,
to
the
come
water
in
management
to see,
company.
yeah, I
to-
second
to-
that too. To
Okay.
see what the problem is, yeah.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner White, a second by Vice Mayor. Any additional discussions?
My only discussion, Madam Mayor, is that we're spending money we don't have. If they find 100,000, they're gonna charge us 50,000 for something we don't have. And we have people in front and organizations and our IRS in front of them. I would not want to do that. I do, and again, this is an aside from what's on the table. I would like to know what is the delinquent amount due in our water account right now. How many $2,000 bills have we not collected, for example? And again, not, Tangi's in the back probably starting to explode on me, but I need to know what is that total of the delinquent accounts.
in our water fund. Because I'd much rather consider looking at a collection agency, as Mr. Lee talked about, charging the $30 or the, whatever, the 30%, getting that recouped, and it costs nothing, and turn it over to collection agency. For me, that would behoove our current staff, who is just battered and bantered every day behind that glass. And I'm being touchy-feely about Tangi or Justin or whoever's behind that glass collecting for water bills, or being told, how dare you do this during the holidays, but we're not turning the water off. So, not fussing at anybody. I'm just saying, I think our delinquent accounts are extreme, and I think the amounts are extreme. So
they did cutoffs, and we did bring in a decent amount of money because we hadn't done them since August, but we're gonna get back, like I said, I'm doing everything the way it's supposed to be done in the timely fashion. So it caught quite a few people that had large balances
Here she comes.
that were
She gonna
paid.
bite
So
you.
yes, we're working on it, yes.
No, you just come through there real fast.
Mike Tangi. Get to a mic.
I'm glad, because see, we weren't doing cutoffs. First it was because we didn't know how to do it in the system. Then we couldn't do it for almost a year because
There you
the
go.
ACHs were not done when they were supposed to be done. You know, so sometimes when I first started working here, ACH was done on the 10th of every month religiously. I could do the cutoffs on the 11th. You know, I could do the late fees on the 11th. Then it got to be 10 to the 15th, the 10th through the 15th, then and there. So the system does not recognize that people are on ACH. It just recognizes that their bill hasn't been paid. I did not think it fair to be cutting people off and giving people, matter of fact, we did it this time when we did cutoffs. We cut off with a gentleman. He called and he said, I'm on ACH. I don't understand why my water's off. And I looked and I said, well, let me see. Your water shouldn't be off if you're on ACH because we're doing the ACHs now. So when I looked, he had been taken off the ACH in August. So this poor man thought his bill was being paid since August, and it wasn't. So I'm happy because I don't like to turn people water off, but I like to do cutoffs because there are a lot of people that take advantage of that. And then they don't pay their bill, and I have no way of knowing that. So it'll be people stealing water. When we don't do cutoffs, people steal water. So I like doing cutoffs.
Madam Mayor, that's my point. before we jump overboard, but jump into an expense, I'd like to see this kind of report and see exactly how we progress. I know you can't, Tangi. Thank you. That's why I brought it up.
Well, I like that idea, and he did say it, and I totally forgot that he said that. I like both ideas, but I like yours the best because it
I was gonna ask,
Yeah, I don't think that was costing us anything.
it is it cost us half of what they fund.
Right, but I thought it was with whatever
They
they
only
find and
charge you
collect.
after they have found revenue.
After they found
and
it,
you
they
equip them collecting
collect,
it.
right, once they help us to collect money.
Okay, so
Right,
it's not
yeah.
the loss they find, it's if,
No,
The
once
collection.
we repair the problems that they find.
Yeah, I think it's,
well,
I think we're talking about two different things and we're conflating them. So the WCA is the company that comes in and figures out where your losses are.
Right.
That is not your delinquent bad debts.
correct.
Then separately, there's the collections agency, which Dallas was talking about, which that one doesn't cost you any money because they take out of what they've collected.
okay.
Well, the WCA,
Yeah, because I was under the impression the WCA, if they come in and find the problems,
correct. So if the WCA comes in and says,
Okay.
we found you $50,000 of delinquent revenue or revenue, whatever, they would get paid half of that, of whatever they found. But we can also, they'll be happy to come in and do a presentation to the commission. So if you just want them to come present to the commission on their services, I'm sure they would.
So if we waited with the WCA to allow Tangi and Deanna to do their thing in the office, and you, maybe too much, that should give us enough time to see if it's gonna make a difference in our water, shouldn't it? No?
I mean, it would be my recommendation that you do both, the WCA and the collections.
What we can do is we can bring back a cost analysis for you all to make a decision at the next meeting, if that's what you'd like.
Then I can table my motion for the next meeting, or just. Then I can table my motion till the next meeting, or just do away with it?
You can rescind your motion if you wish.
I will rescind it until the next meeting.
Gotcha.
But I would like to make a counter motion that we proceed forward with the delinquency totals and have that presented at the 13th meeting. If that's something Tangi committed, she could do that pretty easy. And we'll just see what that volume is right now to make maybe a decision on the 13th whether to assign a collection agency and consider that proposal. I mean, nothing says we have to do both at the same time, but what's going to reap us the quickest recovery of lost funds and an account that is high in expenses because possibly we're not recouping the expenses, the volume of accounts total that we need. That makes sense.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Hope.
Yeah, he's making.
I said by Commissioner Hope.
I just counted with a motion,
Yeah, he
moving
counted.
forward, not trying to jump you up on the chessboard, and Commissioner White.
It
But to
is.
bring that back to us so we can actually see just a volume of money amount that's delinquent right now, so we can act on the collection agency idea.
All right,
And I
so,
second it.
and thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Hope and a second by Commissioner Green. Any further commissioner discussion? So thank you, Commissioner Hope, because as soon as you started talking about it, I remembered that he did say that. And I do think that that would be the easiest route
I
to
just
go
think too fast
first.
sometimes.
No, you're good. Hey, we all get a piece and then we can put it together. Any discussion, any further discussion now that we know which direction we're going? All right, public discussion on the motion. Okay. All right, seeing none, we're gonna go to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome, thank you. Was there, you only had that one?
Yeah.
You're done? Oh, all right. Anything else for Dallas before we let him go for free? Let him go free?
I was trying to understand your headings on the budget. I was
Yes, ma'am.
trying to understand your headings. On the
The
other
first page
pages?
is correct, and I guess the second page.
Okay,
So the first column is your adopted budget, and then your proposed budget, and then the difference between your adopted
okay,
and your
so on
proposed.
the others, should we adopt it
Yes, ma'am.
as well?
Yep.
And then okay,
Adopted,
differences on that
proposed, and
one.
the difference between the two.
Okay, adopted, proposed, okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, based on that conversation and your recommendations, is that something, and again, I guess this is directed to Ms. Althoff, is that something regarding the cleaning service contracted person and the decision about that? Is that something that you could do in your report for January 13th and any recommendations you have once you assess that? Because that wasn't part of your report.
So I believe in your adopted budget, you had, it was budgeted as a contracted position, however, that position is an employee of the city.
Now, right.
So I moved it from contract to salaries.
But at that same rate, hourly, correct?
Yes, I didn't change the rate.
Okay. And that's a concern I have.
Me too, so I'll be looking into
Okay,
that.
and again,
further,
not trying
yes.
to have an answer tonight, but if you could, Madam Mayor, if it's appropriate, could she report on that for us for January? And I forget the
Yes.
person's name, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
Roxanne? Roxanne. All due respect to her, but just, she's moved from a contractor to an employee and no consideration in the rate.
Okay, I'm looking for hers again. Also, we are on this where we can ask questions on this, right?
Yeah, you just made the cut, because I was just about to move on. Go ahead.
You can ask me anything you'd like.
Okay, the senior center, where we made the proposal for the 2,500, what I was told, is it operating
No.
right now? Senior center? It's
Elder
not,
care is there, but they're having a hard time getting people there, so I posted some stuff, and they were supposed to come to the last meeting because they wanted to request use of the community center itself, the Archer Community Center, but no one showed up because the senior center needs a lot of repairs. So once we can get the total number of, the amount for the repair, we can bring it back. Because the man told me the water heater is about to fall through the floor is really, so we haven't rented it in a while now.
Okay.
And there's some other things, windows, doors, he said it needs a decent amount of repairs.
There's a reason for it to be cleaned.
And
Well, I believe they're still in, they come every day as far as I'm aware, Elder Care does. I could be mistaken on that comment, but they asked if they could move the community center, and I said, you, commission, have to approve it, I can't approve, something like that.
But Miss Ollie Mae is not operating as the
No.
senior manager anymore there, the volunteer senior manager. Okay. Is there someone that's replaced her?
Elder Care itself is
Comes
better.
in and uses the building? Okay.
Yes, yes.
but are they currently using it, or you're saying
As far
they're
as I
not?
know, yes.
Okay. The 2,500 that's proposed for it, then that's for the repairs we're looking to do?
I believe it would just be utilities in general. Or do you see something
There's
else?
$2,500 for utilities and then $2,500 for maintenance. Originally, it was budgeted at $2,500 for utilities and $5,000 for maintenance.
And that's because all the stuff that needs to be fixed
So I
there.
reduced the maintenance from $5,000 to $2,500.
You think they will have $2,500 utilities though, if nobody's in there? She don't know.
no, they are there, it's just
She said
not,
they are there.
they are,
Oh, okay.
they're there. The people are
But
not
he
coming
reported
yet.
a lot of issues and concerns that he asked for us to please take care of, or they wanted to move to the community center. So I asked them to please come to a meeting to speak to the commission about that and, fill out application, the whole thing, and haven't had anything yet.
All right,
Okay, I just, I had some notes that I written down, so I would just, have a couple of questions. I'm not trying to hold this up, trying to get us out of here too.
oh, you trying to hold us up, girl.
No, I'm trying to get us out of here too. What is the awards? I don't know what that is. What is that? That's for the recreation? So when we give out awards? Okay. Okay. On the uniforms, you think we're actually spending 5,500? Are we still buying like jeans and stuff like that?
Are you talking about in recreation?
I'm under the parts and recreation. That's the parts and recreation. That's not the one I want. That's not the one I want. That's not the one I want. I had another one. I thought it was for the, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was thinking for Public Works. Maybe I was looking at it wrong.
Public
Is it
Works
more? Yeah,
uniforms
where
is
was that is?
$3,000, and I reduced it to $2,500.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was looking at the wrong, looking so hard and I was going through it today. Okay, so that's for the kids. And, okay. So Public Works is, which I can't put my eyes on right this moment, I see it now. So we reduced that from 3,000
25
to
to
2,500, okay. That's it. Are we still buying jeans and stuff, or we're just buying?
Shirts. We are buying jeans, shirts, and the boots.
Once a year, or?
I believe the shirts hadn't been
meant
for a few
boots.
years, and the boots as well, I believe, but the shirts haven't come in yet, but something hasn't been done in a year or so, if I recall correctly. But all of the things have been purchased this year.
What is actually necessary, though?
Boots.
Probably boots and
And the shirts.
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 That's what I'm saying. Is it necessary that we purchase the jeans?
I mean, I guess that's up to you as the commission. I mean, that's what staff has been receiving.
In the city to the
I'm just
north,
throwing that out there.
we purchase our Public Works employees T-shirts that have our logo on them
Right.
and the high-vis striping. And then once a year, they can get a boot allowance if they are in a position that allows for steel-toed boots.
Right.
We cap our boot allowance, I think, at $75.
Yeah, that's what I can understand, the boots and the shirts, because they need to be, identified as, City of Archer on their shirts. But is it necessary that we purchase jeans? I know I heard that earlier.
I am not aware of many employers who purchase jeans for their employees.
I'm not either. So if we didn't purchase the jeans, we could probably reduce this.
Probably.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I think could probably get reduced there. With those uniforms. I don't know about what it would cost for shirts and boots. What you say once, how many shirts do we probably need to
I
supply?
think we just ordered 10 because
shirts.
especially when they have a water leak, they get dirty and ruined in the pants too. So they're constantly having to, do new jeans. So, and I don't think they cost more than $10 if I remember correctly, $10, $12.
For the shirts?
No, jeans. The shirts are a decent amount when you add 10 by how many people we have. Recreation's included in that shirt as well. The boots, I don't know how much they were this year.
Oh, okay.
They weren't, they're more than
$300
75, they're more than $75.
They were $300 a piece.
Yeah,
That's
they're,
all
What was $300 a piece?
the
but I
boots.
think you buy one and get 2.
300.
Wow, I need to work.
For a pair of boots?
Hello. I need
For one pair of boots.
No, you buy one and get 2 free if I understood that. So you get 3
The receipt said
pairs.
$300.
So that's what it is.
Is it 300?
Nope,
$300 per
$300.
pair is what you saw, $300 per pair?
I can go back and pull
Look
the
at
receipt
that.
and double check, but it was,
Okay.
Okay.
And we buy those once a year?
It should be once a year. Boots should.
The shirts may be more often, and the jeans, like I said, they go through their shirts and jeans quite a bit.
I'm almost positive that we
The
said
boots-
once a year.
The boots would be once, but I believe the shirts and the jeans are more frequent than that.
Madam Mayor, if I may ask, and I'm sorry to put these assignments on you, Ms. Altott, but can you present to us at the next meeting just the last 12 months and the total number of boots that we've bought? If it's $300 and it's 3 pairs per employee, that's excessive.
That is.
If it's, I'm the guy that said 10 to 15 shirts a year per person, I take that ownership because I think our employees should feel proud working in a public works municipal setting. I know that they do get real grimy when there's a water leak. But I'd like to know how many pairs of jeans it averages out per employee as well, and that cost. Because my Tractor Supply jeans in my other job with my rewards cost $22 a pair. So we can shop appropriately, but I don't want to, I do want to know whether they're spending $50 or $60 a pair on jeans, and I certainly want to know if they're getting Tacoma $300 boots from Boot Barn. Because I bought a pair for my grandson, and I took him off the $700 rack and got him back down to $150 rack.
Right.
So I get it, but you can spend a lot of money on work boots. But, that, our purpose was safety and well-being, I think, when we added the boots when our predecessor city manager was here.
Right.
And not trying to take anything away from them, but not be excessive either. So
Right.
if you could just,
Problem with the boots and the shirts. I don't see us buying jeans for our employees. I guarantee you they're not gonna come without a pair.
All right.
and again, Madam Mayor, if that's possible for the manager to just present that to us, just so those accounts. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we just have all kinds of things going on right now.
you guys are taking too long.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yes, okay. All right. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the
Before you
public.
do,
Oh,
Dallas, I didn't know you were on vacation. Thank you for all you've done for us while on vacation.
yes, thank you. Public comment, 3 minutes. Please state your name, well, if you like, please state your name.
John Hanchy, resident. I just have a comment on the uniforms. A uniform is supposed to be something you can only wear at work and not anywhere else. Jeans do not qualify as a uniform. And if you, the t-shirts I can understand, especially the boots. But if you wanted to reduce the number of t-shirts, you could always go with the safety vest with the city logo on them, instead of buying t-shirts. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Is this public comments for the motion?
No, there's no
regular
motion. It's public comment.
Okay. Okay. So much of the stuff that Dallas mentioned, y'all knew about it because I have told y'all at this dais, okay? I have begged this commission to look at all the bills, including the credit cards. I have told you about Cindy paying the bills late. I have expressed many times about the travel forms not being completed correctly, and you knew how much was being spent on food. So you were aware of all of that, every one of you. I can go back to my meeting minutes, or not the minutes, on the YouTube, okay? This really frustrates me because y'all don't ever listen to the public. I'm requesting that this commission take a pay cut until our finances are in order. You know, the citizens, we've suffered enough. I've done everything I could to come up here to notify you of stuff and was ignored for years. Okay, we would not be in this position if you would have took some initiative to listen to the citizens. Again, when I was a commissioner, we made money on the water system. As you can see, it has grossly lost money for the past 8 years. I've also been telling you for years that we are the highest bills, water bills in Alachua County, but I was questioned and y'all didn't believe me on that. This ship has been running too loosely for a while, and I have sat here for years watching this commission give the manager very, very little direction. Even when citizens came to complain, mistakes were made, employees messed up, all kinds of things. You just never, and this is when you give when you give a manager direction, you have to give it here on the dais. You just can't individually give a manager direction. And there was so much bad stuff happening, but y'all still never gave him any direction. It was unbelievable. And we're paying the price. The commission has to be involved. If you think that you can just show up for a meeting or two a month and not do anything else, then you don't need to be on the commission. When I was on a commission, I spent 10 to 20 hours a week. So please take this seriously. You really need to get involved. You need to study the bills. You need to look at the credit cards. You need to be involved in what's happening here. You need to know how to make a motion. You need to know more, look at other meetings, do whatever you got to do, but we just can't have part-time commissioners. But I'm asking for y'all to take a pay cut until we get everything up to par.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Lewandowski, Citizen. So a couple of things. One is, when can we see a plan to implement Dallas's recommendations on financial controls? He's made some really good recommendations. Most of these are stock things you'll find in any corporation. So my question is, when can we see a plan for implementation on these things? What will be implemented and when will they be implemented? Number two, are we taking into account the long-term liabilities that we have as we look at the budget? And this part of this question is for Dallas. We have some long-term liabilities that we know we have. I believe we still owe $166,000 to the feds. Is that still correct? Something like that?
The IRS?
What's that?
The IRS?
Yeah.
Oh, it's 178. but we haven't-
$178,000.
But we haven't got the final bill, so I'm sure it's more.
Understood, yeah, right. And there'll be penalties probably, yeah.
Interest will be 400,000.
Correct, yeah. So that obviously impacts on the budget, the potential on it. And there's some other long-term liabilities that were mentioned here. And so, a prudent person will look at those long-term liabilities, look at the budget, because the numbers you're seeing are not what you're going to have to spend. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. Regarding the water and some of the other things we talked about cost cutting, so, it's a standard management technique to talk to employees. I mean, you mentioned it, Tangi stuck her head out the door, she usually does, and she had some good responses. You need to go out, and as far as I know, this is not against our charter, go out and talk to employees. You're allowed to do that. Look at the processes. It's amazing what you'll find when you would ask an employee, hey, what's the problem? Because a lot of times they know, just no one ever asked them. I like to reemphasize the need to have a project plan and somebody to manage this whole process for the wastewater management that we're talking about. I just can't emphasize that enough. I know we're to talk about grant managers and all that, but that still isn't the person who's putting this all together for the city and all aspects of it. You have to have that one person or maybe a small committee who is monitoring that for you and making sure that you cross the T's and dot the I's and you really know what's going on. The last thing I'd like to ask the mayor, if you would brief us on your conversation in regards to I'm assuming you discussed the financial emergency when you were at the governor's office, and I'd love to hear what those discussions were. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Is that all of them? Anybody else?
Were you going to address that first or still take comments?
I'm taking your comments.
Good evening, Gene Arnold. Boy, lots to unpack here after his presentation. Real quick, from a scale of 1 being really bad to 10 being very good, how would you assess what you walked into and as you reviewed the bookkeeping? What would you rate it? 1 to 10.
So, Mr. Arnold, you're supposed to direct it to us, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought he was here and he did the presentation, I could ask him questions, no?
Well, when he was up, that would have been a great time, but Dallas, would you like to answer that?
Is it that hard of a question? I think you're just a nice guy, be honest.
I would say it's a 4. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened, but it's not a passing grade by any standards.
Okay, all right. I look at it and I see it's embarrassing. All y'all should be embarrassed on this. Now, Kimley Horn, they billed you $405,000 and they did not help you with grant reimbursements? That's staggering. Like, what? The more he talked, the more I was blown away by what he was saying. I don't know what contracts Kimley Horn has, if they have more money coming. The last time he got up here and presented, he said we owed them $360,000, I think it was. Now it's up to $405,000. What's it gonna be? Is there more coming down the pipeline? That comes back to contracts. A lot of talk about fraud. Tony and Cindy, who are here, they've gone, but I don't know. It's interesting. I'm curious who wrote checks, who signed checks. As we go through his progress report, the water fund, I don't know how there's losses since 2018. Nobody realized this. No one looked at that and saw that would be a problem.
and how they go peaks and valleys. WCA, it's free. Get them in here, have them assess it, get a proposal, do a presentation. Seems like a no-brainer. Ameris, revolving loan. Last time you said something about that, it was a lot of money. I think you're trying to pay it down, but this is a good overview, but you don't provide a lot of details. You could go into more depth on some of this when you just make a blanket statement. So just, it would help. You mentioned the county regarding potential low-interest loans. How much? What percentage? It's a good thought, but what are you going to do about it? What can they help with? Can they help offset Ameris? Grant reimbursement has not been submitted. Again, how many, what? You talk about getting a funding expert. Okay, great. Who that is, how much that costs. The county requested project management support. County wants to help. Let's take them up on it. The county, you're going to appear from an oversight board in February. What you going to talk about? What's going to happen on that? The P&L, I could go on and on about this P&L and the errors and the gaps and things. This is a mess. This has got a lot of work to do. We need a balance sheet. We need to know what are your assets, what are your liabilities. Fair enough? How much is in the bank?
So, Mr. Arnold,
What's your accounts payable? What's your accounts receivable? This is basic stuff. You're giving us just a taste of just the general fund. That's it. No water fund. All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Rhonda Robertson, citizen. I agree the WCA should not be put off. It's a win-win. They don't cost anything. You find money for us. We get money, they get money. It's a win-win. I can't see a reason to put that off. And also, as far as the water losses, I make a recommendation and a suggestion that the city no longer takes cash payments for water bills. Check or money order only. I worked in accounting for 21 years and I saw firsthand. I wrote up deposits. Money was taken out of the deposit. I had to rewrite it. It is so easy. That is the easiest way for fraud to happen. Just take the cash. Think about it.
Kirsten, can we legally say we can't take cash?
Businesses do it all the time.
I mean, I
All the
don't
time.
agree with that at all.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson.
I want to hear this answer.
You can hear it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think that you're prohibited from saying you can't take cash, but I can't think of, Dallas, does Newberry?
Newberry doesn't take cash. OUC does not take cash. I know that for sure. Orlando Utility Commission.
Yep. So the smaller utilities tend to take cash, the larger utilities tend to not. That's my experience.
So let's move into 2025, the 21st
So Ms. Robertson, when you, that's why I asked you, that's why I was waiting to see
Okay.
what was going on. Yeah, because,
Okay.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, though.
I'm still no one.
Amen.
Number, I'm still, Archer ain't got enough money for me to steal.
Amen.
But number two, I have citizens who used to pay checks, who when the deposits start being late, because our accountant had surgery and she wasn't here and blah, 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 on and on, that won't pay with a check anymore.
Correct.
Now they pay with cash because they say it was taking too long. And so, I mean, it's up to y'all. I don't care either way, but I just wanted to tell you, I don't steal.
Amen. I feel you. Thank you.
Hey, I'm a Christian.
Well, you look, don't say that too loud because they seem to do all kinds of things. All right. Do we have any more comments? No more comments. So, I know the conversation was not really a conversation. There were a couple questions, Mr. Lewandowski, that were asked and answered. So one question was, am I interested in relinquishing the charter? My answer was absolutely not. Am I interested in help to monetary or other means, resources to help the city? And I said, of course. And he said, okay, and he scribbled down what he scribbled down, and he said, gotcha, we'll be in touch. So that was it. For that. As far as water losses, there have been, we knew that something was going on at different times, and of course they know it now, because that's why we end up with, what we end up with when the water is turned off. Yeah, the cut, no, the,
Connect fee?
no, when, no, unfortunately. Like when you have to go fix a break, what we end up with, the, water boil.
Boil water notice.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, those. All right, yeah, the boil water notices. But the so-called new meters that we got, and I can't remember if it was 2018 or 19, when we first looked at them, that was one of the reasons, because the meters were starting to fail, and a lot of citizens were having problems. And after we changed, the meters that we went to were supposed to be one of the best, but since we've changed over, we've had some problem with some of those. So it's not that nobody has noticed. We've tried to mitigate it, but there are still problems. So, anyway.
May I ask one question?
I don't know. It depends on what it is.
Okay, so just a while back, I think it was 2 years ago, I think, we signed a contract with I think it was something like this quasi-government agency for water management. So it was rural. Thank you. That's right. Yeah. So they were also, as part of that contract, which I guess we're still making payments on, right? There were some payments on that. They were supposed to provide some services. So I guess I said I haven't looked back. It just came to my mind. I haven't looked back this for a long time, but I think it'd be worth reviewing that to see what they provide, and perhaps there's some assistance that we can get as part of that contract.
Thank you. All right. We are moving on to old business. Agenda item 1, biweekly food distributions. Who was?
I actually thought one of them was going to be here, so I apologize. So Miss Kalita Wilcox and all the other people that have been volunteering at the food distributions are committing to continue the food distributions. So city staff will just need to unload the truck with the forklift, unlock the storage door so they can get the tables and whatever chairs or whatever they need in there, and then burn the boxes the next morning. So I talked to Calvin and John and Steve, and they said the staff time would be less than an hour. So we're just asking to please let staff spend that hour and not stop the food distributions for our community and surrounding communities.
Okay. All right, and that was the conversation, I think, at our meeting 2 weeks ago. And I think it happened during the commissioner reports. I think that is when it came up. So to discontinue the
Because I had reached out to Kalita also and talked to her, and I reached out to Calvin and some other volunteers to see what we can do to try to keep it less time for the city workers to be there. And with Kalita, she spoke to like Mike Nattil, this guy named Willard, and they're willing to, like Deanna said, to work together to try to make sure that they don't need the city workers there other than to unload the truck. So I would like to extend it for a couple of months to see if they're going to step up and do this before we just cut it out, because where I may not need it, it's some people who really do. Like the lady was saying, she's on a fixed budget. It's a lot of people taking care of their parents and a lot of things. So we need to think about those citizens too, just because we may not need it. There are some people who don't, so I would like to extend it, like Deanna said, and see if the volunteers can step up there.
All right, so is that a motion for
Yeah,
you?
that's my motion.
All right, all
Going.
right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor, a second by Commissioner Green. Any other discussion?
Yes, ma'am. We tried this 2 years ago. We were gonna go once a month or do away with it one. And, we were told that we could go twice a month, and the guys would come in that, Bread of the Mighty, or, was it Bread of the Mighty? Yeah. Would deliver it, and all they had to do was unload it, and, one employee is all it would take, and the volunteers would take care of it. That went to, I don't know where that went, because all of the guys were working it, all of the guys work it now. And, while I agree there are some here that need it, we've got to remember too, we are low on employees, especially public works. And, we can't continue to take them away from public works. So if it's only for an hour each week, every 2 weeks, then I'm good. But if it's gonna take more than that, I'm not good.
So when you say a couple months, are you saying to try it for 2 months, 1 month?
Yeah, at least 2 months to make sure we can get the well, some people have dedicated that they were gonna volunteer. So I would like to try to extend it for at least 2 months to see if they're gonna step up and do it. That, again, it's some people who really need it. It's easy to say, you know, they can get free food from anywhere because you're not in their situation. And I would hate for the city workers to be there for 8 hours or 5 hours while they're doing the food when we got volunteers that they really don't need to be there. So I spoke to Calvin also, and he said all they're gonna do is unload, and they're gonna get the other guys to come in and use the jack to load it up. I mean, put it around the bin how they usually do.
Yeah, so that they can put it out. Any other discussion?
Well, I was told, did they do it last week? Did they do it last week? Anyway, last time they did it, I was told that's what the guys did. Unloaded and left. So.
So it worked.
Yeah, so it sounded like it worked.
All right. Commissioner, Hope, you got anything before? Commissioner, not Commissioner, public discussion on the motion.
Gene Arnold. When was the last time you all went to one of those food distributions? Has it been last month, last 6 months ago? Has it been a while?
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I went to the last one, December 17th, and was blown away by a couple different things. First of all, the amount of food that was there. So the generosity of Publix and some other companies that do that. Meat, bread, could not believe the amount of food that they're unloading that was donated. Then I was blown away by the number of cars that were lined up. There was probably 25 cars deep. And then I was blown away by having a quick conversation with Calvin, who said, basically, we don't charge. They don't charge. That's an important thing to say. They said, we want to help these people, so we're going to take our hour for lunch and not charge. Is that correct?
That's not what they did.
They didn't say that to me, but if that's what Calvin
Well,
said.
but
then
is
I'm
that what
sure
they're
they
doing?
would.
Because that's what he told me.
Then they probably are, because we each get a 15-minute break the morning and afternoon, so they could have been taking that.
Okay,
as
maybe it
well.
was break, I could have
Could
gotten
be.
confused, but he was so passionate about it, he said, and there were three, Calvin, John, and the other gentleman were there, and they unloaded, and I think they were getting ready to head out. I just asked Calvin a couple quick questions, and he had an immense amount of pride in helping these folks. and it was refreshing to see that, you know, tip of the cap to the Public Works Department for those 3 guys that were doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that.
And Mr. Arnold, during the time that they are doing the food distributions, I'm at the school.
I am not at the school, but I'm on the clock.
Hi,
Hello.
Lori Costello, citizen. I wrote y'all an email. I sent many pictures of the city. We have deferred maintenance like crazy all over the city. All over the city. Deferred maintenance equals money.
Are you talking about the bi-weekly food distribution? That is the motion
I
on the
am.
floor. Okay, so.
Okay, that's exactly. Did you not read my email?
I read it.
Did you read my
Are,
email?
your
Mayor?
time is ticking. Are you gonna
Okay.
ask a question?
Okay,
Or make a
so
comment?
I sent you all the email with a bunch of pictures with deferred maintenance. Okay, it does not take our guys an hour. Just to go get the food and bring it back is 2 guys, over an hour, set up the tables and unload it. That's 2 guys, minimum 2 to 3 hours. Okay, to break down the boxes, do y'all know how many boxes is there to break down? That don't take no 15 minutes, okay? So I don't know who's blowing smoke up your skirt, but, and the fire, that doesn't burn in 15 minutes. There's a fire going on over there for hours, literally hours. Okay, somebody has to be there when there's a fire. So an hour is absurd, absolutely absurd.
We said to take it off the truck. We didn't say to burn the paper.
Okay, well, remember, there's going to get it, bringing it back, taking it off the truck, and there's always 2 guys that go for it. The next day, they break down the boxes. Do you know how many boxes they break down?
How many? Because I'm sure.
Probably it fills this whole area,
About how many boxes?
okay? 100, 150? Okay? And to burn all of them, hours, 2, 3 hours at least. Somebody has to be there. Okay, just wanted to let y'all know, and we have a lot of deferred maintenance. Okay, this is a city. I also told y'all how many other places do it in Archer. 4 other places. There's at least 10 other places that do it within 10 miles. 10 other food giveaways. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
The Public Works does not go get it,
And-
so we're aware that they bring it to us for bulk distributions.
Correct. Thank you.
Real quick, just to add, there were 6 to 8 volunteers that were there that were seemingly taking care of everything that I saw. I can only go off of one day and what I saw.
So, Mr. Arnold, once you go, once you've spoken on this one topic, you don't come back up. But thank you. I appreciate what you
I
said.
should have mentioned that, but
Yeah.
you had a couple things that.
That were incorrect, I understand. Thank you so much. Yes.
Don Hanchey, citizen. I just have one question. Volunteers don't show up. What happens?
That's your one question?
That's
You're
my-
done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So what happens? Does it stay on the truck? Food go bad? Or now the city is obligated to spend a whole day dealing with this? And if there's 10 other places that are doing it, I say we do away with it. I understand during COVID, it was the right thing to do, but we're past that. And it's costing the city money. Money we do not have.
Thank you, thank you. So, Mr. Hanchey, say it again, how to pronounce your name? Hanchey, okay. So the motion is to do it for a couple months to see, and by her saying that, to see if they are actually gonna step up to the plate. And if they do not, if we have an issue like that, then that means we do have to, I think, cut it all together, because that would mean we don't have anybody willing to actually commit the time that they say. That was what I understood by the motion.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are we ready to vote? And I know Commissioner Green seconded, but she went off for a minute. Is that it from you guys? Yes?
Sheila Parker, and I'd just like to say, with some of these citizens, they don't have a lot of means, and this is the food drive is a good thing for the community, and it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. Just because you all have, several jobs and y'all can feed y'all families, a lot of people can't, and some of these people don't have transportation to travel 10, 15, 20 miles away to get food from other places. So you, Vice Mayor, recommended 2 months of a trial period, which I thought should have been more of a 3-month period or something, because and then y'all mentioned the volunteers. I've come through there, and I've always seen a lot of volunteers. So I don't think that's the problem. And I cannot believe you all consider raising rates 17%, but then you want to cut off food to needy people. That sounds ridiculous, all in itself. So consider not only yourselves, but everybody else in the community who can't sit around in a nice suit and eat caviar.
Well, thank you. Okay. Is that it for public discussion? Because I'm about to go to a vote. Commissioners, that's it? We good? All right, let's go to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor, all in motion, all in favor of the motion, yes, on the floor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose likewise.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
I'm going home and get my caviar.
Girl, go get it.
Yeah. I said, yeah.
All right.
Madam Mayor, I had a citizen ask, do any of us participate? I did it for over 3 years.
Wait. Oh, okay.
The
Yes.
USDA on a quarterly basis, then twice a year, as well as the local effort. It was going to pick it up, 3 different trips, 2 guys, the entire public works. I volunteered when I was retired doing that. Yeah, there were more than 25 cars. There were 100, 150 lined up. It was during the pandemic. There were those that became very choosy about what they got. I'm sorry, I'm just not giving the caviar in the soup. I'm giving you the real McCoy. It became an expectation even before the pandemic was over. There were people that pulled up and said, give me the good stuff.
I don't want pizza and a broke up mouth.
And I want more than 2 chickens. It became almost, and the one I work next to is somebody that I miss to this day, and that was Carlton. And we would laugh it off because it hurt us as we sat there, and we would joke with each other just to get through the day. But I can assure you that even now, the unloading takes more than an hour. It takes more than one person. The breaking down takes more than one person, the setting the fire is not even part of our ordinances and allowed, and we do it, and we get complaints from that. And the fire does have to be watched for hours, or it gets out of control in that park. So there's the downside of it, as well as the restrooms always have to be cleaned completely after every one of those events. It's all a good in the heart situation, but it does cost the city money. It does cost more than one staff person 1 hour. And I cannot sit up here and justify it when we have bantered with this for 6 months and heard about deferred maintenance, heard about things not taken care of in the city as far as maintenance and public works focused items, and we just approved it again for a trial, another trial for 3 months. My heart goes out.
It was 2 months.
But it'll come back to us in 8 weeks for another decision. When we do not have the staffing now, and this is when we had 5 public works and now we're down to 3. And this is when we had a pandemic and we don't have that. This is when we did not have 10 local food giveaways and we do now. And most of them are less than 10 miles away. And these people do line up burning their gas in their cars. Very few, I remember 2 out of over 300 participants that came up in a wagon or a bicycle. The rest of them popped their trunk or would tell us and direct us where they wanted that food. Not let me get out and help. Put that there, put that in the trunk. So I'm not refuting it. I'm just saying that's the real McCoy other side of this. And there are those dedicated volunteers that I love to this day because I work beside them. But it becomes an expectation, folks. And I'm glad you saw 25 or 50 cars. It used to be during the pandemic 125 or 50, 2 hours before we'd even start. So I don't know how many, the volume, that doesn't really matter, but I'm just telling you the other antithesis side of this expectation that does cost our staff time and effort and money. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. New business, approval for 3 welcome to the City of Archer signs.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Actually, a citizen brought to my attention that we had never, or asked where the 3 Welcome to City of Archer signs were. So I checked with Public Works, they didn't have them, so I believe they weren't ordered. So I got the company that did our big sign to do the layout. It is just basically our big sign, but just 4 by 8, and of course we need 3 of them. So it'll be $1,905. I'm just wanting to know if you guys want to move forward. Plus, we'll need to buy, of course, the posts, the hardware, and place them in the locations that they were previously. If you wanted us to move forward with the signs or not at this time. Or if you want a different layout or wording or colors, I need to know that if you want to move forward. Because you don't like this layout.
Because everything is the same as it was, is what you're saying? It's the same as.
Yes, yeah, the colors and everything was different. Yeah, this just matches our big, she said they couldn't find where they did the small signs, but I think they were before I was even here, I believe. So it's, if you guys want to move forward or not. I know you probably approved it way back when.
I think we did, but Commission, what do you guys want to do?
Are all 3 signs missing?
Yes.
The only one we have is the
Correct, yes,
24?
ma'am.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we do not proceed forward with this expense at this time. With the other urgent financial corrective action steps that we've been presented with tonight and the funds and expenses that's going to take. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Hope and a second by Commissioner White. Any other discussion?
We do have the green city limit signs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
No discussion?
No.
No discussion. Public discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Motion carries 5-0. agenda item 2, which is the amendment from the meeting earlier today, amendment number 2, number WG019.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is, as you know, we had an emergency meeting called earlier today to just give a brief overcap of what this is. Regarding your wastewater treatment facility, you have, relevantly, 3 separate agreements. You have an interlocal agreement between yourselves and Newberry. You have an agreement with SRF for a loan, and then you have an agreement with DEP for grant funding. Based on, after some negotiations with DEP has offered generously to amend their grant agreement with us, such that instead of us having to pay an expense and then being reimbursed by DEP, we can have DEP pay upfront. So we no longer have to front those costs. That does not change your SRF agreement. That does not change your interlocal agreement. All of that is still in play. At the meeting that we held at 3:30, because it was necessary, so just to give you a sense of why it was necessary, we received the updated agreement last Thursday, and they indicated to us that it was due today, and we said that's wonderful because we have a meeting today, so that'll be great, just put it on the agenda. And then today they said actually we need it before 5 p.m. So that's why we had to have our emergency meeting, because this does financially benefit the city a lot, and we didn't want to miss out on this opportunity. So the request here is just to ratify the agreement that you approved at the 3:30 meeting today. Happy to answer any other questions.
I will make a motion to ratify the agreement that we approved.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner White and a second by Commissioner Green. Any further discussion by the commissioners? None. Public discussion on the motion. Seeing none, let's go to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Motion carries 5-0. All right, we have our last public comment period. When you come up, please state your name if you'd like us to have it for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Lori Costello, citizen. Also the food giveaway. I have seen food still left in the big box. That seems to always be left there with food still in it. They can't even give it all away. But anyhow, that was just there rotting. I didn't hear any feedback, which I would like feedback. This would be the second time that this commission has been asked to take a salary cut. For good faith for the city. So I would really like and appreciate some feedback from each commissioner on that. Also, I will just tell you something else that's been on my mind if I haven't already told you. That getting the sewer system is going to be the beginning of the end of Archer. Okay? The numbers do not work for our city. We do not have enough citizens to pay for it. And I'm so afraid that we're gonna have what do you call those things? Assessments, and everybody's gonna have to pay. That would be bad. So just remember, I'm telling you, because I've been telling you things for a long time, and they all hit us now because nobody listens. So again, if I can get some feedback on y'all cutting your pay rate. I mean, I think I got $187 a month, and I put 10 to 20 hours in a week. And we always made money on the water system. And, you know, we did a lot. I studied the bills, the budget, the profit and loss. It takes time. It takes time to be a commissioner. And you just got to know the workings of the city. And so I hope each one of you will take this job seriously and do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gene Arnold. Curious, when a commissioner doesn't attend a meeting or two, and I don't know how many a commissioner can miss, do they still get paid? Does everybody get paid if you don't attend a meeting? How does that work?
And it depends, and it has to be an excused reason, yes. And I think in the bylaws, it says you cannot miss, I think, 2 in a year, or is 3? Okay, so I know it was.
All right, thank you. On this profit and loss, and maybe you said that you were still working on it, for the actuals, lien search fee, $84,000 was the actual, and the budget was $650. That just jumps out right there.
Highlighting roads as I'm looking into it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Community center rent is a negative. Robinson Park rent is a negative. I'm not sure how it's a negative on a P&L statement for revenue, but okay. Expenses, this jumped out at me under commission, travel, spent $8,000, the budget was $5,000. The city manager travel allowance was, the budget was $4,500, spent $12,000. That kind of jumps out. Again, I mean, I think we saw the $44 ribeye. There's a line item, but there's no any kind of description here for $29,000, so there doesn't really know what that is. Does that make sense? Okay. IT Edmonds contract, there's nothing put in there for that. That's unusual. For the cemetery, there's no expenses when $2,500 was budgeted. For the water, for the maintenance of the cemetery, there's no expenses when there was $2,500 budgeted. The road and street repair, there was $35,000 budgeted, but yet only spent $2,600 doing road and street repair. That seems staggering to me. The Ameris loan interest, which I think you've stated was very high, and it was a terrible rate. It's a different loan. Okay, so there's multiple loans. Again, that balance sheet would help that. Understand. Wilson Robinson maintenance. The budget was $13,000 and spent $53,000 on maintenance. Wow. Okay. All right. I'm just reading the maintenance. Utilities for the community center.
So, Mr. Arnold.
Yes, ma'am.
That's your time.
Yes, ma'am.
again.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I could go on, but thank you.
Thank you.
I just came up to see if you pronounced my name again.
Oh, don't do me like that.
I had two different things. One, on this food giveaway 2-month trial. Who is going to go over there and provide, my favorite word, oversight, to see what actual time it's taking the employees of City Archer to do this? Because they're going to do whatever they need to do to make it happen. So they're not going to come up and tell you they spent 4 hours of their time. I don't believe. They're going to, if the people don't show up, or if it takes 3 hours to unload versus an hour, they're just going to do it. Someone needs to do some oversight and see what action that takes.
I can see me going up there doing it. Imagine.
And then the second thing, on the sewer system, I'm certain I brought up a thing a couple meetings ago about what do you do after hurricanes where we notoriously lose power for days and the pumping stations don't work, backing up. And I was told, well, you could hook a generator to them and there's disaster relief. Well, my question is, what's the plan to get those? And you better get them before the hurricane because you're not going to be able to get them after. And how much fuel are you going to have to run those generators for how long? There needs to be a plan for disaster recovery on the sewer system, and in nothing I read is there any consideration for disaster recovery of the sewer system. And before we move forward with that, we better have a plan. We really need a plan. So I'm begging you, you gotta look into that, you gotta figure this out before we move forward with this, because if you don't, and then we have to incur more costs, it's going to be passed to the citizens again. So please, let's go in with our eyes wide open and not with the blinders that we tend to use. That's it.
Thank you. All right, so Deanna. On December 17th, when the guys did the last drop or unload or whatever, did it take them a very long time?
Calvin's listening, so he would have to, I could get that information and send out to everybody.
He's listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how much time it took them. I know Mr. Arnold said he was there, but I know he probably wasn't there the whole time. So I'm not sure if that was their week to do it or the volunteers.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah.
okay. All right. I was just curious about that. All right. It sounds like she's coming to the door.
Calvin said it didn't take them a long time. He on the phone now.
Hey, Calvin, what's not take a long time? What does that mean?
Like I said, about an hour, if that, all we gotta do is unload the truck, okay?
Yes, sir.
I drop off the pallet jack and stuff for them. They do all the stuff.
Oh, it went to
Like I said, the next day, and burn the box, and that take us maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe. It don't take us that long.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Well, since you said Calvin was listening.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Additional comments, public comments.
Sheila, have you all considered asking some of the surrounding churches to help volunteer to, take some of the burden off of the city employees?
Thank you. Yes, we have, and I do think some have initially. I don't know if any are doing it now, but it doesn't prohibit us from asking again.
We did ask, we reached out to the churches in Archer and asked them if they would take it over, and nobody had time.
It was short-lived if they did. They presented themselves, and again, this was during the pandemic, but within 3 months, it would dwindle down to no participation. And there are 13 inner-city denominational churches in the city limits of Archer.
For a while, we would get a lot of volunteers, and then it would dwindle down to almost none, and then it'd be a lot of them again. It was according to how much was coming in and what they could get. And I don't have a problem with that. I think the volunteers ought to get it first, but it goes up and down.
All right, so meeting adjourned at 8:39. Mr. Hanchett. I'm gonna have to practice your name some more.
It took me about 6th grade